Time now for Back Pages tonight here on Sky Sports News, bringing you a first look at the sports stories in the morning's newspapers. And joining us on the show are football writer and broadcaster Henry Winter and the Mirror's chief football writer John Cross. Great to see you, gents. Welcome along to you both. We'll hear from you shortly. Let's quickly run you through the Back Pages as they stand this Monday evening. Now, as with most of the papers, The Guardian leads their back page. The news of Rodri's injury looks like it's an ACL, could be out for some time. City sick the Champions Rock because Rodri may miss the rest of the season. Back in John's paper, The Mirror, they also carry the Rodri news, but their leaders will be waiting for you. Gabriel, who's obviously very much involved with Erling Haaland during the match, says that Arsenal already looking at Emirates clash with City in February in an attempt to gain revenge after conceding that late equaliser at the Etihad Stadium. The headline on the back page of The Sun is "Oh my rods." City star could be out for the season. So again on the Rodri injury news, they carry huge news from Everton as well. Dan, £1 billion Everton deal. Dan Friedkin, owner of the Friedkin, head of the Friedkin Group, looks like they're taking over at Goodison Park. The Telegraph lead with a story from Saturday's heavyweight boxing. The headline there: FA to act after Saudi fight ban. The Wembley owner and organisers consult on media. The Telegraph writer Oliver Brown's exclusion, a, quote, breach of press freedom. The image there of the prospective new Everton owner, Dan Friedkin, on the left. Come fly with me, Hollywood mogul on brink of £500 million Everton takeover. Yes, he is an American businessman. He's also an experienced pilot, a man of many talents, it would seem. In the Times Sport section, they lead with the news that Rodri is out for months. They also have the good news for Everton fans. Potentially, not done yet, but they're getting closer. And another injury setback for Emma Raducanu. Right then. Welcome along once again, Henry and John. I think there is only one place to start. And I know the game was on Sunday, on Super Sunday, but obviously there is still more fallout and more reaction to what happened at the Etihad Stadium as Manchester City and Arsenal drew 2-2, courtesy of that very, very late John Stones equaliser. Let's start off with The Guardian, and this is what they have on their back page. And it's, of course, you know, Rodri, we know, and we've known for a long time the quality he possesses, but also how unique he is for Manchester City. I mean, even Pep Guardiola has said that he's irreplaceable. So, Henry, I mean, this is a huge blow, isn't it? I mean, this is the sort of player, you know, if there was one player that City wouldn't want this to happen to, surely it's Rodri.
He's such a key part of Manchester City's spine. And you saw last season when he was suspended for the 3 games that Manchester City lost them all. I mean, it's an important story on many levels. First, obviously, and clearly, you know, for him, the anguish. He loves playing. He's one of the most sort of intelligent observers and most measured individuals. He's almost like a statesman for Manchester City. So, you know, the frustration for him at doing the ACL, obviously the impact on Manchester City's season, their bid for another title. But there's a broader element to this, and I know Cross has been covering this as well. The PFA and FIPRO, the Global Players Union, have been campaigning, doing a lot of reporting and reviewing and talking to players. Maheta Malongo, the chief executive of the PFA, has been going around and talking to players about the workload. So Rodri played 63 games for club and country last season, 68 the games the year before, and the plan or the hope is that players would have a maximum of 55. So clearly he is in the red zone over that. Obviously an ACL is slightly different. It's not sort of, you know, wear and tear or whatever, but it's it's just desperate that it's happened for him. But there's broader issues here, and it completely backs up the PFA and FIPRO campaign about player fatigue and player workload.
Let's come back to that point in a moment. But John, in terms of where this leaves Manchester City, obviously Pep Guardiola has deemed Calvin Phillips not up to the sort of required standard to play that role that Rodri plays. He's not at the club. But then what are the other options? Kovacic, Gundogan, sort of a combination of them. Rico Lewis, maybe even potentially at the base of midfield?
Well, the point, David, is that we're looking for solutions there that we won't be able to find. He's absolutely irreplaceable. I think he's a magnificent player. I think when you consider what he achieved last season, you know, and in previous campaigns as well, unprecedented success. He's their leader. He's their talisman. He's what makes Manchester City the footballing machine that they are. He anchors that midfield to absolute perfection. His unbeaten record, which stretched back for so long, is just a remarkable testament to his quality and his ability. He's also such a deep thinker. I had the pleasure of interviewing him last season, and we sort of kind of had a good hour together. And he's such a deep thinker, and it was, he was talking about, perhaps beyond his playing career, being a sort of a part of the game, beyond management, beyond coaching. He wanted to go into sort of kind of the administration of perhaps of football, and you could really see him do that because he just thinks so deeply on and off the pitch. He's a brilliant player. He is, in my view, the reason why the foundations as to why Manchester City have become the best team in the world. They unquestionably are, in my view. They play the best football. They've been an absolute joy under Pep Guardiola, swept all before them. And, losing him is a massive miss. Henry's so right. And I know we sort of kind of go back to it about the sort of the stats. And obviously Rodri was one of the most outspoken last week. He was talking about the strike. If you ask any physio or any medical professional, they will point to a correlation between ACL injuries and fatigue. Honestly, the numbers are startling. And really, this should be a wake-up call for football. Let's hope he's back because he's a wonderful ambassador for the game as quickly as possible. But I tell you what, football must learn its lessons. Fair play to the PFA and Maheta because they're doing a brilliant job, I think, in highlighting that they cannot let this drift on. They must take the sort of the fight on, and Rodri's been at the forefront of that. And it'll be a sorry miss, not just for Manchester City, but also for the quality of the Premier League, if indeed he is out for the rest of the campaign.
And you think of, the games he's played with Spain at the Euros, the expanded Champions League. There's a new expanded Club World Cup as well, which he could presumably be involved in. So you just think, the expansion of these competitions is another thing that plays in here. Just to come back to you, Henry, on the point that you made about almost like the cap, how would that be executed? How would it operate? Because clearly there's going to be opposition to that. If you sign a player, a club signs a player, or a national manager wants, to use that player, then they will want to use them as much as they deem fit.
Yeah, it's a really good point. And it would have to be worked out not simply on number of performances, but on minutes, because if you could effectively play 55 minutes and in 55 separate games. So it would have to be done on a sort of minutes thing. I think the countries and the clubs, they work so closely on this. The issue, as John's alluding to, is with FIFA and the Club World Cup at the end of the season, because that's an absolute ridiculous competition just to sort of shoehorn in there. Effectively, you're having an 11-month season for players. Now, there's not so much sympathy for players amongst the public, amongst fans, because they are very well paid. And you could say to them, well, if you're going to do a quarter fewer matches, then you're going to take a sort of a quarter less in your wages. But that headline there on the back page of the Times, Rodri out for months. Look at his face. Look at him holding his knee. That is a terrible image for football and FIFA. Everyone at FIFA should be looking at themselves as well as looking at the picture and thinking of the workload and the pressure they're placing on these star players. The game shouldn't be about FIFA. It should be about players like Rodri. It should be about Manchester City fans, Spanish fans, going to games and wanting to see Rodri, and they're not going to be able to, possibly for the rest of the season.
Yeah. And look, there are many different games that are played. Of course, you talk about the FIFA Club World Cup being expanded to 32 teams, but also, teams have not just pre-season friendlies and tours, but they have post-season friendlies, going to Australia for just a game, which has a number of issues connected to it. John, do you think you will ever get to a place where it gets so serious that players or a singular player decides to just call it and say, no, I will not do this, effectively go on strike?
I think it's a possibility, David. I know that it divides opinion whether it could happen or not. One thing that always amazes me is that players, multi-millionaire players, sign up and support each other and are unified in support of their union. It's remarkable, really. And I just think it's incredible credit to the players to have that unified base as members of the Professional Footballers Association. And I think we should applaud that. And I think the PFA now, under Maheta Malongo, is really taking great strides and going places, making a stand, being very vocal, presenting the evidence, really, of too many games. And I do genuinely think there will come a time when the players will stand up under the guidance of the PFA and say, enough is enough. We are not entering another competition. It has to be, I think, basically, you have to reach almost a threshold and say, we're not entering this competition. Whether that's the FIFA Club World Cup or not, we don't know, but let's see. I just think at the moment, all the players want to play in the Premier League. Of course they do, and the Champions League. There's extra 2 games, and what people seem to be missing on this in the Champions League. In the groups, the old group stage, it used to be 6 games, and a couple of those were against the sort of whipping boys. Now it's greater intensity. So you've got more games of greater intensity, and that's putting even greater pressure on the players. Look at the schedule that these players have had. If you're not looking at City, look at Arsenal the week that they've had. It's too much. It is too much. But the players are always asked to sort of play because we love watching the best games, don't we? We love watching the best players. But there has to come a point where football will eat itself and will do so much damage to itself, as indeed, Rodri is finding out to his cost this week. I can't tell you enough. If you ask a physio, there's a direct correlation between fatigue and ACLs. There really is. And I think it's a really worrying step. And I think it's a sort of kind of a point in time for the PFA to say enough is enough. And I'm sure players will listen and stand up behind them.
Yeah, and I think, look, in terms of football eating itself, as you say, John, well, football's only got the best players if the best players are playing at their best and fit. And we know that players carry injuries. They're not always 100%, they're 70% or whatever. But my goodness, if you want to watch Erling Haaland and he's only 50% because he is carrying serious injuries, that surely affects the product of the game as well. Look, the game on Sunday was compelling, wasn't it? Especially that second half. It was, such a siege mentality from Arsenal. They almost got through it. Back page of your paper, John, if I come back to you here, on just this rivalry and how it's developing. These are two sides who play wonderful football and they do admire each other. But do you sense that we've had a real tonal shift as a result of this game now?
Yeah, I do. I think it's brilliant as well, by the way. I actually think it's fantastic. Down the years, we've had some brilliant Premier League rivalries, haven't we? And it's sort of Simon Bird, my colleague, highlighting here sort of kind of whether it's Man United against Arsenal, whether it's kind of, Chelsea against, whoever, take your pick really from Jose Mourinho teams. But I mean, it's been fantastic down the years. Most recently, it's been Liverpool, Man City. And I just think that now that Arsenal, particularly with this Arteta Guardiola link, which kind of makes a nice symmetry, the sorcerer against the apprentice. City have been the best team in Europe for what? I don't know, 6-8 years under Guardiola, who, in my view, is a genius, plays the best football. And now Arsenal are really pushing them. They've gone close 2 years running. And I just think that, if they kept 11 players on the pitch, that I think they probably would have gone on to win the game. That shows the distance they're making up. Arsenal certainly, let's be honest, pushed the boundaries, didn't they, really? It's really interesting because they clearly, sort of kind of employed some dark arts, and sort of your logic tells you that they actually did a lot of time wasting. But actually, the stats were remarkable. The ball was in play for 63 minutes, 29 seconds, which is the 5th longest this season. Well, that defies all logic. So they tried to sort of do some time wasting, but they weren't very good at it. And City just couldn't find a way through until that last gasp goal. But I tell you what, that equaliser does do, it just keeps that pot boiling, doesn't it? I think it's a brilliant new rivalry. I think Arsenal will probably feel their time has come, but that will only stiffen City's resolve, I think, and particularly when you look at sort of Erling Haaland and the passion on his face, that actually they want to keep their crown yet again. I mean, it's been remarkable what Guardiola has achieved, but if there's one person that sort of kind of feels probably that he's ready to take this step into the breach, then it will be Arteta, who's just done an incredible job at Arsenal. But this is the rivalry that the Premier League, will relish, I think, for the next 3 or 4 seasons.
Yeah, I was just actually looking through the mirror, and I think actually, one of your writers, John, has said Arteta's job is to dig in, not to play nice. I wonder whether his mood might shift a little bit. Because we've often seen Pep Guardiola a little spiky. I wonder whether we might see more from Arteta in that vein. Looking at the back page of the Daily Express, Henry, a crown called Malice is a nice headline. Gabriel now gunning for revenge on title rivals at Emirates. Are we going to start seeing some real characters emerge? We've had the Haaland and Gabriel. You can see it literally tete-a-tete there. But you know, this is a guy who was really in the thick of it, wasn't he? In so many ways. Obviously scored, and him and Haaland, you know, at it, you know, pretty much all game.
Well, Arsenal should take it as a compliment that Haaland was reacting like that at the end of the game, because it shows that Arsenal now are an absolute eyeball to eyeball significant threat to Manchester City. I mean, Haaland's a magnificent player, but I thought some of his behaviour at the end was a little bit petulant and throwing the ball at Gabriel as after John Stones scored. I mean, I'm surprised he wasn't booked given the match for delaying a restart. But look, he's a fabulous player, and there's some amazing players out there. I think when Arsenal get the ball down and play, and obviously it would have been different if Odegaard had been there. I think, you know, they're a magnificent sight as well. But I think their defensive resilience in the second half. I mean, I take John's point about the amount of well, there wasn't so much time being eaten up, but that was partly because Manchester City just had it and were passing it sideways and sideways, and it wasn't sort of going out or going dead. But I think Arsenal's time wasting was very clear, and there was a certain karma that John Stones equalised in the 8th minute after 7 minutes of added time.
Yeah, such drama, wasn't it? Well, yeah, it certainly sparked the rivalry even more. John and Henry, thank you for the moment. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we will take a look at more of tomorrow's back pages, including this in the Telegraph. FA to act after Saudi fight ban. The Wembley owner to demand organisers consult on media. This after Telegraph writer Oliver Brown was excluded, quote, breach of press freedom. We'll focus on Dan Friedkin. He's also on the brink of a £500 million takeover of Everton. Stay with us. You're watching Back Pages tonight. Welcome back to you at home. Welcome back to football writer and broadcaster Henry Winter and the Mirror's chief football writer John Cross. Let's go to the Mail and let's talk Everton. So, Henry, Dan Friedkin now is the front runner to buy Farhad Moshiri's share, 94% of the club. Can Everton fans genuinely be excited that the saga is going to end and this is the deal that will be done?
It's getting very close, and they'll be keen to see the back of the majority shareholder, Farhad Moshiri, because he's been detached and the club's been drifting under him. Some of the recruitment has been questionable at best over the past sort of few years. They need someone like Friedkin to step in. You saw the back page of the Telegraph with him in his plane. He's actually in the film Dunkirk. He actually flies a Spitfire in the last scene. So, you know, he knows how to get into Europe, which I think Everton fans will like. So there's the picture there. That doesn't look like, I don't think that's a Spitfire. So look, he's a charismatic individual, but there will be one or two issues. I'm sure Everton fans are looking, well, I know they've been communicating with their counterparts at Roma, where a club that Friedkin owns, and Daniele De Rossi, the head coach and club legend, was dismissed last week. The chief executive left as well. There's fan unrest there. Friedkin, I think, I mean, the Everton fan advisory board, have got some very intelligent, very committed individuals working for them. They released a statement about an hour or so ago in which they put probably about sort of 20, 25 issues, considerations for Friedkin to look at and work with them on. The obvious things like no Super League, the most important things also like maintaining some sanity with match ticket prices, the sort of the issues like that, academy, all those sort of, you know, major issues for supporters. And he needs to listen. He needs to work with them, because Everton, look, all clubs are run by individuals. They're powered by fans. They're powered by selfless staff. But particularly Everton, you know, the self-styled people's club. Friedkin's really got to work with the supporters there and work with the staff, because this could be a fantastic new era for Everton Football Club. Obviously, they've got to sort it out on the pitch. Sean Dyche could do with some new with some new players. There's been discussion already, not within the club, but about the possibility of a new manager. Gareth Southgate's name's been mentioned. Don't know whether he'd be interested. I don't know whether the Everton fans would be interested. So look, there are many elements there, but there's so much that's right about Everton Football Club. The new stadium, Bramley Moor Dock, it's a magnificent stadium that's rising as we speak. They've got a fantastic fan base. They've got some decent players. Look at Branthwaite and Calvert-Lewin when he's fit, and it could be a special moment in their long history. But he's got to get it right. He's got to invest. He's got to work with people there, and he's got to communicate. And Friedkin, from what Roma fans have been saying, isn't a natural communicator, and he's going to have to address that.
OK, guys, we've got about a couple of minutes left. Let's push through a couple more stories. John, on Anthony Joshua and Daniel Dubois, front page Telegraph sports section. Obviously, Joshua seems to think that this is not done yet. He still has a career that he can fight and become a 3-time heavyweight world champion. Briefly, if you can, how do you see this?
Yeah, it's a fascinating one. Brilliant fight. Fantastic. I mean, what a turn up for the books with Daniel Dubois. But I mean, let's be honest here. We're reviewing the back pages and sort of the front pages there of the of the Telegraph, making it absolutely clear that basically some of the negative press really about the operation, the Saudi operation, banning English journalists from Wembley for just voicing their opinions about it. If this is supposed to be sports washing, i.e. putting the Saudis in a good light, it's backfired spectacularly. Because as David Bernstein, the former FA chairman, described it as a flagrant breach of press freedom. I'm sure we'd all love to be talking more about the fight, but they've shot themselves in the foot spectacularly here. But listen, I think it's revitalised, isn't it, the heavyweight division, which is the most important thing. So I think, if we can get back to focusing on that, hopefully, if people can sort out their sort of press operations as they should do, then hopefully it's a brilliant time for the boxing industry, really, and indeed that heavyweight division.
Yeah, I think that, we'll see what happens with Joshua and Dubois. But as you say, to link to the Saudi story, thank you for doing that, John, because that was a really, really important one for us to reflect, given that obviously the situation in that country and the situation with sporting events going in their droves to that country. Gents, we're going to have to leave it there. But thank you so much again to Henry and to John for your company and your insights this evening. If you missed any of the show, another chance to see Back Pages tonight at hour. The show also available as a podcast. Just download Back Pages on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your pods.